Introducing a child to hunting is a politically charged powder keg in today's modern society. But it wasn't always this way. Teaching a child gun safety, animal behavior, and ethical hunting practices was a rite of passage for most boys throughout the entire 19th and 20th centuries. Even in ancient times, teaching a child the way of the hunter was a mandatory part of a person's transition to adulthood. But in the last 20 years or so, humans have been de-evolving into hyper emotional creatures that just throw logic to the wind in favor of a desire to just be offended by everything. The emergence of social media accelerated this at an alarming rate as well. At first, firearms were looked upon as evil, and later, hunting itself became the epitome of evil. As a result, most people just stopped hunting, and our hunting heritage was no longer passed on from parent and grandparent to child. It was in danger of being lost forever. Then, an unexpected thing happened. The COVID pandemic struck, and politicians severely overreacted by just shutting everything down and forcing people to social distance. This actually made people return back to the wild in droves to experience the beauty of nature, to reconnect with the earth, and to return to natural food sources again. One major outcome of this return to nature that we saw was a renewed interest in hunting. COVID was just the perfect storm for people to return back to our hunting roots. The state of Michigan saw a whopping 67% increase in hunting license sales in 2020. Nevada and Idaho saw a 30% jump in hunting license sales that same year. And even liberal California saw an 11% jump in hunting license sales. Nationally, female hunting license sales increased by 24%, which is absolutely amazing. You know, even some leftists were seeing hunting in a more positive light for the first time in their lives. But the coolest thing I noticed was all the young people getting interested in hunting again. Even though we've experienced a great hunting resurgence recently, many people are still against hunting, and your child will undoubtedly have negative experiences dealing with teachers, friends, parents, and progressive family members. Your child needs to be prepared to deal with these people. Leftists like to get their point across by attempting to shame people, and they won't hesitate to do this to your child. I've had a teacher tell my oldest son that he murders animals in cold blood. Yeah, that pissed me off. And she did it right in front of his classmates. Luckily, I was able to get my point across to her and the principal and remove my son from that class. But nothing ever happened to that teacher. And I suspect that most public school teachers feel similar to that teacher. So you have to prepare your child mentally for this assault on hunting and fishing that they're probably going to experience. And the best way to do this is to teach your child about the conservation aspects of hunting and the healthy, ethical food aspect of hunting. Teach them in a way that's easy for them to comprehend too. You need to teach your children about the positive benefits of hunting until they're able to form kind of a competent and confident rebuttal to anti-hunters. You know, once your child has the facts and the confidence to repeat those facts, most leftists will simply give up and move on to something else to be offended about. It's also important to instill confidence and independence in your child so they aren't swayed by peer pressure or the status quo. Peer pressure is actually an important tool used by progressives to indoctrinate your children. And lastly, watch out for people who will go out of their way to cause you legal harm. If they see pictures of your child holding a gun or with a blood smeared cheek after a deer kill, they might report you to police or social services. In some places, like the county that I live in, law enforcement will just laugh that off. But in other places, like Los Angeles, the full weight of the legal system might come crashing down on you. So be careful about posting hunting pictures that include children or giving your child access to those photos so they can show their friends at school. Just be smart about it. Most states in America consider a youth or junior hunter to be someone 16 years of age or younger. I've always felt that the age of 16 was a fair cutoff age for humans to possess the maturity level to handle firearms on their own. But it's perfectly fine to start your child hunting at an earlier age if you can do it responsibly and under strict supervision. I usually recommend that children don't actually hunt until they're into the adolescent stage of childhood, usually around, 11 or 12 years old. This is when the prefrontal cortex of the human brain changes or evolves to increase decision-making abilities and cognitive control over their own behavior. Children younger than 11 or 12 years just don't possess the mental ability to plan ahead, control their impulses, and evaluate situations. Hunting and safety just might be beyond their true comprehension, regardless of what you think. But, it's great to take younger children hunting with you. That way they'll be able to observe and learn from your actions and learn ethics before they begin hunting themselves. Teaching a child to shoot a gun and about gun safety is perfectly fine, but trusting a child to handle a gun safely is not okay. No matter how young you start a new hunter out, never trust them with a gun until they're well into their teenage years and they've proven themselves. I've had countless dads tell me about how squared away their 8, 9, and 10-year-olds are with guns. But around me, I experienced just the opposite. 10-year-olds have the attention span of a hummingbird on crack. Seriously. They're just not mentally mature enough to be trusted with a loaded firearm on their own. So never trust your youngster with a gun, ever. When you take your child target shooting, always stand behind them, find a good shooting position, line them up behind the gun, load it for them or let them load it, then go through the shooting process with them. Never let them walk around or take a step with a loaded firearm at the range. And when your child reaches that adolescent stage and you decide to actually take them on a real hunting experience, where they're actually the ones hunting, it's okay to let a young hunter carry their own gun for the first few times, but make sure that the action's open and never let them carry it loaded. Think of this as a teaching moment so you can correct their muzzle discipline and gun handling, because when you start them out young, you're going to see mistakes, and I guarantee it. And then, when you want your child to shoot an animal, get into position behind him, load the gun or let him load it, and coach him through the shot. But never let a really young hunter walk around with a loaded firearm, ever. Don't do it, no matter how squared away you think they are. Always make it a rule that the gun doesn't get fired, meaning they do not put their finger in that trigger guard unless you give them permission. They can't see an animal and just shoot it on their own. They have to ask for permission to shoot. As a parent hunting with a minor, you're legally and morally responsible for every bullet that leaves your child's muzzle. Consider your child's age and level of maturity before you decide to take on that liability, because it's as serious as it gets. When you're in just about all states, when you're youth starts hunting, he needs a hunting license. So take your child's hunter safety class with them, but don't take it for them. I constantly hear about dads taking the course and test for their kids online, but when you do that, you cheat them out of actually learning about safety. And let's be totally honest here. If your child isn't intellectually or mentally mature enough to study for a hunter safety course and pass it, he probably shouldn't be hunting. Now let's talk about the number one mistake that parents make, especially you dads out there. Every parent of a youth hunter wants to run down and just buy their kid their favorite gun. You know, dads are usually more excited about your kid's first gun than the kid actually is, but most parents end up buying the wrong gun for their little hunters. First of all, don't buy your child a semi-auto gun. Don't let them hunt with a semi-auto gun. The chances of a negligent discharge or a panic shot are multiple times higher with a semi-auto. Start them out with single shots, bolt actions, lever actions, and pump action guns. Every instance I've heard about or witnessed where a child has shot someone at the range or in the field involved semi-auto or full auto firearms, so don't do it. The most important attribute of a youth gun is obviously fit. That's more important than anything. But the reality is that most youth model guns are too big for boys under 12 or girls under 14. If your child can't get a proper cheek weld and eye relief, a youngster's not going to shoot very well and will likely get frustrated with hunting and quit. So if a gun doesn't fit, don't buy it. You're completely wasting your money. The classic starter shotguns for kids has always been a Remington 870 or a Mossberg 500 because as they grow, you can buy different length stocks for them, and even in little increments, you can shim the stocks even. So it's basically a gun they could shoot their whole lives. Also, choose your child's cartridge wisely. Most of us learn to shoot by plinking at cans or targets with a 22 rimfire. And this is a great way to learn shooting fundamentals and for kids to have a lot of fun without worrying about recoil. And it's cheap to do. But when hunting big game or birds, cartridge selection becomes absolutely critical. For deer hunting, a cartridge like a 243 is usually a child's first deer rifle. It's powerful enough to ethically kill a deer, but I also consider it a cartridge that a child can't really grow into. So I tend to favor cartridges they grow so fast between, when they start hunting when they're 12 years old, up until adulthood, that period of time just flies by. So you don't want to keep having to buy guns. So I like to get a cartridge that the child can kind of grow into. And cartridges like the 257 Roberts, the 25-06, 6.5 Creedmoor, or even the 7mm 08 just make great starter rifles for kids throughout their entire adolescent and teen years. Just make sure that the stock on that rifle is short enough to allow proper eye relief. For bird hunting, a 410, 28 gauge, or 20 gauge works. I usually, though, these days, I kind of changed my mind on this in the last 15 or so years, mainly because of raising my boys, is I don't recommend a 410 anymore because it's hard for kids to actually hit birds well enough to kill them with the 410, which often ends up frustrating them really bad and they lose interest in it. It's also really hard for them to hit clays with the 410, so it tends to be counterproductive when you're trying to get a child to practice. I actually like the 20 gauge the best as a youth shotgun cartridge. It'll kill any dove, duck, quail, rabbit, or anything, or anything else you hunt with the shotgun with these, even turkey with the right loads. And it's a cartridge that a young hunter can actually grow into as they get older. I also recommend a gun that has interchangeable stocks on it, so it can be used from childhood to adulthood. I think that it's absolutely fantastic that people are getting back into hunting again. And more importantly, that they're wanting to get their children out there too. This is absolutely critical for the future of hunting and conservation. But getting a child into hunting has many challenges, and it isn't as easy or straightforward as it was when I was young. In addition to finding the right gear and determining the right age, you have to navigate today's political, legal, and ideological landscape that tends to vilify hunters. Well, I hope this video gave the parents of new hunters a little bit of guidance as they introduce their children to hunting. The essence of hunting is self-reliance and a deep appreciation for nature, which is a good thing for any child to learn. But it's important that we do it responsibly. Thanks for watching, and as always, good hunting.